Calling our Shelton City Council meeting for December 3rd, 2019 to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. Donna, would you call the roll, please?
I will. Councilmember Dorsey.
Present.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Councilmember Franz.
Present.
Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anything from the council? All right, thank you. We'll move to council reports. Councilmember Dorsey.
All right, I have, aside from my regular briefings with Mr. Knighton, my Mason Transit Authority Board meetings is coming up on the 19th. I mean, excuse me, the 17th. And that's about all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nisco.
It was pretty quiet for me as well with the holidays. I had outside my briefings and city meetings. I don't have a meeting until the 11th, the Housing Behavioral Health Advisory Board.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Krantz.
Well, I have my staff briefings with our city manager. I have been in the process of cleaning out my desk, preparing for my departure from this beautiful group that we all call the City of Shelton Council. And I'm looking forward to this Friday night when they close Railroad down. They put the little flower or the little burning pots out there, you know, and people walk around, drink hot chocolate and sing Christmas carols, and they have this little, the ride where the kids get on and do all that stuff. So I forget what the actual name of it is. Do you know what it is, Deidre?
It's Holiday Magic.
Holiday Magic. So I'm looking forward to that event downtown Shelton, and that completes my report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I was on vacation for a couple weeks, so I was out of city loop business. I attended the Telecare open house tonight with planning to open the new facility this end of the month, I believe. Looking forward, next week we have excuse me, drawing a blank. I don't think I have anything next week. This week, besides Holiday Magic Friday night, we have Christmas Town USA going on in the future, the Christmas parade on Saturday, so I encourage everyone to come to town on Friday and Saturday and the ongoing couple of weeks. It should be pretty fun. And if you haven't noticed, there's been lots of activities going in town. I want to thank all the groups and all the individuals who are participating in that. Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Well, first, I'd like to welcome back Mayor Rogers. I'm very glad to have you back. I do not have another opiate stakeholder meeting until the new year, but I do have a PRTPO Executive Board meeting on December 15th.
Okay. Councilmember McDowell.
Met with several constituents, briefings with Jeff, board meetings, left board this morning. EDC is having an open house Friday afternoon, which should be fun. And I'm going to be attending the Officials Essential Training in Olympia on Saturday morning, and then the parade Saturday night.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt.
Good evening. Tomorrow attending the Mason County Public Health Summit. Thursday attending the Regional Economic Forecast and Innovation Expo. And next Tuesday, MACECOM Board and Legislative and Governance Board meeting, and then an EDC Board meeting on Thursday morning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we come to our first period of open public comment. If you haven't, there's a list to sign in. We want to know who's here so we can communicate with you after the meeting, follow up with you. We allow 3 minutes for public comments. If you have any comments that are not related to further action or business items, now's the time to come forward.
Our first comment is from Jessica Anderson.
So I'm Jessica Anderson. I don't live here, but I work at the hospital in the emergency room. I live in Grace Harbor. And so I've emailed all the city council about this. I didn't receive a response back. I also emailed the city manager. And I said that you should probably get all of Hector Diaz's stuff so you can do your own research on him. I don't know if you have, but I have copies that I handed out to everybody. So what I want to know is how and why Hector Diaz was able to get reinstated by the city manager with the help of Dan Patton to work for the department again when he was terminated by the chief. And he wasn't criminally charged, but he was fired for multiple violations. He's had 2 IA investigations done for domestic violence, stalking, harassing women in his department, and a barista in Shelton. He also lied about having a false restraining order, throwing 2 of his other officers under the bus when they weren't even involved. And during one of the investigations, he lied under oath to a judge and is on a Brady list because he can't be trusted. So he has a history of domestic violence in California, which I didn't dig for. I just requested for public records and got. And during one of the investigations during that, he lied to the officer about how a TV fell on the floor. And when he was asked why he lied, he said he did not know. And so this is a pattern for him. So how was he able to get a job through the department with his history, and what kind of background checks and the psyche evals are done on the officers before they're hired? So Diaz, he threatened to hurt me, my pets, and threatened to urinate in my daughter's fish tank. So I had an emergency protection order against him, and I don't understand, you know, what normal person does that thing. People don't normally say those things to people. And then I don't see how he can be trusted in the community at all when all he does is lie. It's a pattern. So I spoke with the chief last week, and the chief seems to put all the blame on the city manager. And nobody seems to want to take responsibility for reinstating this predator. And I want to know why put the community at risk due to fear of arbitration and its costs. The safety of the community should come first. And I also spoke with law enforcement in other cities, and this would not be tolerated in other cities. And he wouldn't be given a second chance, so why is he getting a second chance here in Shelton? And anger management and counseling isn't going to fix this problem, because on the city manager note, he says he's going to counseling and support groups, but that's not going to fix his behavior when it's been ongoing for years. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Tracy Bishop.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Bishop. I live in this county, have for many, many years, raised my family here. I work at Mason General. She is my coworker, and I had a few things I wanted to add. I had not planned on speaking at all today as I was getting ready. I was thinking about, this wasn't just about her or any of the other women that were harassed or abused by Hector Diaz, but this is about this community and the community I live in, my family lives in. It's about the safety of them. I love my law enforcement. I work very closely with them, have always worked very closely with law enforcement, and I trust them for the most part. But our citizens deserve better than this. They deserve an honest law enforcement officer. They deserve someone who upholds the law himself as he tries to make others uphold the law. It's been really difficult to sit back and watch this unfold and not be shocked and sort of embarrassed that a man of this stature was rehired as law enforcement. I get how the union works and that, but it has been big talk in the community. People are asking questions. That's one of the reasons I'm up here too, to give a little bit more information. I also gave you guys a handout of him lying at his first court appearance for her domestic or restraining order. I highlighted the good parts. I suggest you read it all, but there are some highlights in there for the good parts. This man, you know, had admitted to lying to his boss, his chief, to his captain, and in 2 investigations, admitted to lying. He has a long history of violence towards women, specifically towards women, and I guess I would ask, my question here is, how do we get back to rehiring him when at this day and age, law enforcement is under such scrutiny for the simplest things. They are getting fired for the tiniest things, too much force, all this and that. Yet we have a documented long history of violence towards women, of stalking and harassing, and we have hired him back. So I'm concerned for my community, and that would be my question. Why did we put him back on the street with a badge and a gun? Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Next is George Blush.
Hi, my name is George Blush. Most of you know me. I live in the city of Selton, and I know Hector Diaz. And that's what I'm here to speak about today. We've all had a bad breakup. We've all had a bad breakup. Everybody's been there. Everybody's had a rough time and the ending of a relationship. This is what's going on right here, and it's being presented for all of you, and for it all to be laid out on the table. Hector Diaz is a decorated combat veteran who served our great nation by doing 2 tours in Afghanistan. He started the K-9 program here in Shelton and rocked it. He did that all by himself. He didn't have to. He decided to do it. He came here to the Shelton Police Department after working at another great law enforcement agency here, the Mason County Sheriff's Office, where he went through the psychological and polygraph screenings, and he would have been red flagged. I sleep next to a law enforcement officer every day of my life. I know everything you have to go through in order to get into law enforcement. When he was a kid, he got in some trouble. You know what? Who didn't? After that, he turned his life around. He went to the military, served 2 tours in Iraq, and then he got hired by the police department for being a good guy. You have a bad relationship that ended awfully. The relationship, the part that they don't want to tell you about is that this relationship also ended with a pregnancy that was terminated. And no one wants to talk about that part, okay? Nobody knew about that. And that's why he ended the relationship, gave back the keys, and moved on with his life. He was never convicted of anything, okay? I want you to go and look up PC 1203 forms. That is the outcome of the cases, not a couple of police reports. People can say anything they want against you. People can come up here and say anything they want against me, anytime they want to. But you have to read the whole case and the disposition and what happened. Not believe the screaming people that shout on Facebook and take all that up everyone else's time. Thank you for your time.
Our last speaker is Dean Jewett.
Good morning, Dean Jewett, live up on Mountain View. First, I want to give a shout out to the police department, Chief Moody, code enforcement officer. I had a personal thing with our business, and they took care of it, very professional, and I just want to say thank you. The code enforcement, I would like to see the council work with the police department and do some positive instead of reactive. Maybe there's some things that we can do as far as some bike patrols, some foot patrols. If officers need a bike, I'll buy a bike. Do we need some cameras? I'll buy some game cameras. I'm worried about the new Santa Claus up on Overlook Park. What's gonna happen to that? We already had the PUD come down and fix lights on the tree, how many times? A couple times already. So at what point in time are we gonna walk away from, turning our back and not having the individuals that are causing these problems held accountable? Just because we don't have room in the jail doesn't mean that we can't hold them accountable. There's other cities that are working this as well. So we need to take a look at some of those, see what they're doing, and see if we can copy those and get them down here. I'm a positive tax-paying individual. There's a lot of other business owners in town that are the same way, and we're getting sick of it. So I know it's a state issue. It's a trickle down from Seattle to Tacoma, from Tacoma to Olympia, from Olympia here to Aberdeen. You've heard me talk about it before. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's some things out there that we can do. But I, for one, don't want my tax dollars used by the city to have to go clean up different things that shouldn't be there in the first place. There's common garbage. There's different things like that that happen within any city. But when we have to use our tax dollars and pay city workers or anybody else to go do this, I think it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time. If they're given a ticket, the people that cause the problems, and they can't pay it, we have community service. Then the community service people can go and take care of the problem that they helped create in the first place. So now there's some accountability. It goes round and round. So a thought, we need a downtown coalition of individuals working with the city council and ourselves and the police department to come up with some short-term goals that are easily obtainable. And then we can kind of go from there to figure out what direction that we need to do. If we need to get everybody working on getting some cameras out there and then getting that footage and that information to the police department so that they can then identify those individuals. Apparently there's one individual that was doing a lot of tagging. That individual is no longer in the system, but now that's getting re-tagged. So anyway, that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Anyone who didn't make the list like to speak this evening for this first comment period? Okay, thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments. I will just make one comment. The council was briefed on the issue of the police officer. And if there's any questions on the procedure that the city went through, I'm sure our city manager would be open that discussion. He went through that with me. I missed the sit-down the week I was on vacation, but he did it with me, and I think he did it with every council member, along with legal counsel, at least for the people who were, I missed that. So please come to discuss that with council members, and if you want, I'm sure our city manager would discuss the procedure we go through. And it may not be what you like, but it's procedure that was followed. So, but I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Consent agenda passes. Okay, has anyone signed up for any of the business agenda items?
No, they haven't.
Okay, thanks, Donna. First item, Finance Director Aaron B. Miller has information about the 2019 budget supplement.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Aaron B. Miller with the Finance Department here. Before you is our second supplemental budget of the year. Supplemental budgets are done when we need to increase the expense authority for a particular fund or set of funds. The ordinance in front of you would increase two funds, the bond fund and the capital improvement fund, and totals just under $2,025,000. If you turn to Exhibit A of the ordinance, it gives a little bit more information about those two amounts. The bond fund is a very small amount of about $500 that we want to put in there on the off chance, we don't think it will happen, but on the off chance that we make contact with our financial advisor and start talking about a potential refunding that would happen in 2020. We're getting late in the year and things are starting to happen, so I don't think it will happen, but we want to have that just in case. If that expense doesn't happen, we don't put out any money. The second increase is for the capital improvement fund. And this is in two pieces. It's budget appropriation of about just over $1.5 million for grant qualifying street expenses that are part of the Basin 3 project. The Basin 3 project was budgeted all in the sewer fund, and then Public Works Director Gregory got an approval to use some of those funds for street purposes on that. We need to code those street expenses to the capital improvement fund and not in sewer. Sewer fund is there to code for sewer projects and sewer expenses. So we're gonna move those costs over of about $1.5 million. We also have an additional $700,000 is rollover budget for the Downtown Connector project for 2018 expenditures that didn't go out of our books until 2019, and so those were an unplanned $700,000 expenditure for 2019. They were planned in 2018, and so we're adding the carry forward budget for that as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Questions for our Finance Director? Okay, seeing none. Everyone concur to move this to the action agenda for December 17th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so done. Okay, next on the agenda, Public Works Director Craig Gregory is going to speak to us about an engineer services contract.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I bring forward to you tonight the proposed contract with Gray and Osborne for supplemental engineering services, really just to augment the staff that we have available at this point. for specialized occasions where we need some technical support. In late October, we solicited for proposals. We did receive 2 proposals back to the city of Shelton. One of them deemed to be not qualified. They failed to state on the envelope under Article 6 of the RFQ that it was for this particular RFQ, and it was opened inadvertently before the actual time deadline was up. We did score that firm anyway, and came up with Gray and Osborne being the firm scoring the highest. That was done by staff, city staff in mid-November. So I present to you again the contract for Gray and Osborne to move forward with supplemental engineering services. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council members.
How many recent projects has Gray and Osborne had of ours recent, like over $1 million projects? They've done quite a few, correct, recently?
Not necessarily over $1 million projects. They have provided services on the Sewer Basin 3 project and the Downtown Connector most recently. And right now, they are doing design work on the Western Gateway project. And they do provide right now some city engineer services also.
So they have a strong knowledge of downtown Shelton.
They do have a very strong knowledge. We do have some smaller projects with them also that they are engaged with. They also have our sewer comp plan that they're working on. The gravity water line upgrade on the high school tank that they are also under contract to design. So some smaller, lower level, but they do have a vast knowledge of Shelton and the infrastructure that we have.
Other questions for Craig? Seeing none, concur to move this to the action agenda December 17th?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Next, it's back to Craig to an update on the C Street landfill.
Thank you, Mayor and council members again. Just bringing forward the biannual update for the C Street landfill. Not much activity in this the second half of 2019. We really have been waiting the vast majority of that on Department of Ecology and their recommendations on how to move forward with the cleanup. And unfortunately, for this update, we just received those comments back at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So you will be getting those shortly. It was a very short list from them of comments back, 6 of them. So we will be sharing those in the future of the recommendations by Ecology to move forward. The big one was that submittal to Ecology that we didn't include in your packet. That was a very lengthy submittal, about 100, I want to say it was 150 pages or so. It is posted on the city website. So if anybody is interested in actually taking a look at that, like I said, it's a very long document, but it is on the city website. And I would be happy to answer any questions. The only thing that I would point out is we do need to take public comment on this, Mayor, per our agreement with the agreed order.
Okay, we'll specifically ask for that. Any questions for Craig before we get to that? Okay, so specifically to the C Street landfill update, is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment on that? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay. Okay, we're going to recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing on non-representative salary schedule. Up is Michelle Sutherland for details about that schedule.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, good evening. We went over last time on the business agenda, the salary schedule that's been developed for non-represented employees. to allow us to effectively compete for qualified personnel and ensure that the salaries for city non-represented employees are commensurate with their duties performed. So you do have the most recent version of the updated salary schedule this evening. So we ask that you move to approve ordinance 1946-1019 as submitted, adopting the City of Shelton's non-represented salary schedule. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Questions for Michelle this evening?
I move to approve ordinance number wait, we need reading on this first, yes? No?
Is there any public comment on the salary schedule tonight? Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
By all means. I move to approve ordinance number 1946-1019 as submitted, adopting the City of Shelton's non-represented salary schedule.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, Donna needs to read the bill.
Final.
Final reading.
Are you ready?
Yes, would you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 1946-1019, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, ratifying existing employment positions and salary schedule.
Okay. Now do we have a motion?
Let me say it again. I move to approve ordinance number 1946-1019 as submitted, adopting the City of Shelton's non-represented salary schedule.
Second.
Okay, thank you for indulging me, Deputy Mayor.
Of course.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1946-1019 as submitted, adopting the City of Shelton's non-representative salary schedule. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And one comment, if I may, is it possible to have the updated version attached on the website as well so that the final copy makes it to the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We will close this public hearing and open a second public hearing on ad valorem taxes for 2020 schedule. Finance Director Aaron B. Miller has information about the ad valorem taxes for 2020.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, council members. Before you is the ad valorem tax ordinance for collections in 2020. This was part of the business agenda on the November 19th meeting. All in all, the total amount that we will be levying for the general levy for property tax would be $2,123,600, and the EMS levy would be $324,200 and just about $35. There are no changes from our discussion that we had on the 19th, and we would recommend that you would adopt this ordinance.
Okay. I'm going to ask for public comment first on the ad valorem tax. Any public comment? All right. Do we have a motion? Excuse me. May I have a second reading of ordinance 19401019? Thank you, City Manager.
Ordinance number 1940-1019, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, setting the amount of the annual ad valorem taxes in the City of Shelton for calendar year 2020.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 1940-1019, adopting the City of Shelton's 2020 regular and EMS ad valorem tax levies for collection in 2020.
Second?
Okay, do we have any questions for Aaron or further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 19401019, adopting the City of Shelton's 2020 regular and EMS ad valorem tax levies for collection in 2020. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will close this public hearing and open a public hearing for the final budget for 2020. Aaron, it's back to you for the 2020 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is the ordinance for our 2020 annual budget. This was heard on November 19th as a business item. The total budget for 2020 is $30,367,880, and of that, $12,290,690 are in the general fund or budgeted for general fund. I did want to make mention of two changes that we made between the numbers that were presented on the 19th and the numbers that are presented today. In the general fund, we increased the general fund by $12,320. That is for the per contract for our fire costs, which is the city's assessed value, divided by 1,000 and then multiplied by $1.68, which is the fire levy rate for the city. So, and then we add $50,000 to that for the fire marshal. So we increased that budget by just over $12,000. And we discussed a little bit on the 19th about the salt storage building. Originally, that cost was budgeted in the street fund. We've moved that now from the street fund and into the capital improvement fund, since it is a capital project. The street fund remains the same because that expense simply goes from the capital expense to a transfer out expense, and the $90,000 then is expended again in the capital improvement fund because of the fund budgeting that governments do. We have to show both expenses. So overall, it's an increase in budget of $102,320 from what you saw on the 19th. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. First, is there any public comment on the 2020 budget? Mike, come on up.
I've missed, Mike Olson, I've missed a couple of the meetings, so I may be off base on this, but if I am, just let me know. I saw that there was a staff position added as a homeless liaison for $92,000, I believe. And I'm kind of questioning the wisdom of that, seeing as how, you know, the last 4 or 5 years, we've been asking for money for things like bathrooms and deals like that to deal with the homeless population. And there's some of the comments by Dean tonight that, you know, this wheel's already been created once. I believe that there's already places in town that are doing what this position will fulfill, and I just wonder if there could have been a better use of that money, such as more law enforcement, or perhaps paying for the sprinkler system at the shelter to house more people, or, you know, any number of things that would have been a better expenditure rather than adding another bureaucratic position that is already out there doing this. At the Community Lifeline, Hope or Love Inc., I believe, is doing some of this. There's a Mason County Housing Coalition. You know, there's a number of agencies out there that are already pursuing grants and working with the homeless population. And for the city to have $92,000 to just throw at it without any real, I didn't see any kind of a real mission statement or a plan. I asked a couple questions on the city website page, but never got an answer back to them. And that's my comment, is this really a good expenditure of money for the city when there's more needs that could be met by, you know, getting some real boots on the ground with that same amount of money, rather than creating a position that I don't know that you're gonna get the value back on it. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, Mike. Anyone else have public comment on the 2020 budget? Okay. I'll ask for a second reading of ordinance 1941-1019.
Ordinance number 1941-1019, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adopting the budget for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 1941-1019, adopting the city of Shelton's 2020 annual budget.
Second.
Okay. Questions for Aaron or discussion?
Just a brief comment, if I may. I would just like to thank you and your staff for working so diligently through this process. It is not an easy thing to come to a budget, and I know we put some very strong pressure on the city manager and your staff as well to get this to something that we felt was fiscally responsible. And through many, many meetings that you indulged us with a lot of questions and a lot of detail, and I really appreciate your efforts in getting us to this place.
Thank you. Thank you. I will pass that on to the team.
Okay. Councilmember Schmidt.
Just a comment and opportunity to get on a soapbox again to remind the council members that we have a continuing gap between the revenue that the city brings in and the cost of operating the city on an annual basis. It's time to get to work on that for real. We continuously rewrite the ship year after year, and staying status quo, that gap is going to continue to widen further and further to a point where it's going to be almost unrecoverable, and we need to, over the course of the next year and following, we need to make sure that we're setting the right path for the city with sustainable revenues to fund the core functions of our general fund and other city essential services.
Okay, any other comments this evening? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1941-1019, adopting the City of Shelton's 2020 annual budget. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Aaron, and everyone. Okay. Okay, we will close the public hearing on the 2020 budget and resume our regular meeting. Has anyone signed up for any of the action items?
No.
Okay. I guess we're back to Aaron. That's why you're still there, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about an ordinance addressing the B&O model changes.
Thank you. The ordinance before you was also heard at the November 19th meeting as a business agenda item. And in short, to create a certain degree of uniformity for businesses operating within the state of Washington, all cities and towns levying a B&O tax must adopt the provisions of the statewide model ordinance. And there have been some changes to the model ordinance, and those changes are incorporated in the ordinance that you have before you. So really all we're doing is we're continuing to be compliant with state rules on the collection of B&O, and we will be updating our code 3.52 with this ordinance adoption, and we recommend that you adopt this ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Can I have a second reading of ordinance 1945-1019?
Ordinance number 1945-1019, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to business and occupation tax, amending Shelton Municipal Code, Chapter 3.52, entitled Business and Occupation Tax, making changes to the procedures for the assessment and collection of business and occupation taxes.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 1945-1019 as submitted, updating section 3.52 of the Shelton Municipal Code.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any questions for Aaron or discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1945-1019 as submitted, updating section 3.52 of the Shelton Municipal Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to Aaron for an ordinance about administrative tax provisions.
Thank you. Really kind of second verse, same as the first on this. These updates that we're doing here, again, are part of statutory requirements by the state for cities that collect B&O. Really, the only change in the administrative tax provisions in this ordinance will update Shelton Municipal Code 3.10, and it's changing the deadline for B&O tax submittal for annual filers to April 15th, to tax day. And that's the change in this ordinance. Happy to answer any questions, and just as a shout out, I know the city clerk likes reading long things, so I have another one for her here.
Why don't you go ahead and read ordinance number 1947-1119.
Ordinance number 1947-1119, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to the administrative provisions for business and occupational tax, amending Shelton Municipal Code, Chapter 3.10, entitled Administrative Provisions for City of Shelton Taxes, making changes to the administrative provisions for the assessment and collection of business and occupation taxes.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 1947-1119, amending section 3.10 of the Shelton Municipal Code.
Second.
Okay, any questions or further discussion?
Question. Has anybody heard from the business community that this is potentially impactful? I have not heard anything, changing the date, simply put, so it's gonna be no big deal.
We hope.
Just wanted that on record.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1947-1119, amending Shelton, section 3.1 of Shelton Municipal Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Aaron. Last action agenda item is for Community Development Director Mark Ziegler, information about a contract amendment.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Bringing to you today 2 amendments for 1-year extensions for our building code professional services. We've had these contracts in place for 2 years, and within the original contract, there was a provision to extend those for 1 year through December 31st, 2020. Any expenditures would be offset by revenue. So these are supplemental code services pools for either really large projects or projects there might be a conflict of interest in, that we supplement that with outside resources to make sure that we're meeting our goals and meeting our timelines to provide expedited services with building permits.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark?
Do they have a timeline in their contract to get to these inspections?
It's mostly plan review, but there are based on the valuation of the project, the size of the project typically is the valuation. There are guidelines for when they would provide first comment and second comments for any reviews, yes.
And this is more overflow in our building inspector.
Exactly right. When you have a one-person staff essentially, and you have plan review and inspections that are borne by that one person, and then the quarter time that we have, sometimes it's much more efficient to send out the plan review for, say, hospital or the new elementary school, so that can be done outside while we're still conducting these services for residential development inspections and the such with our staff here, so they're not sitting in the office and doing that plan review and putting everything else at a hold.
Any other questions for Mark or comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the contract amendments by authorizing the mayor to sign the on-call professional building code services amendment to contract number 1 for Clarity Consulting and Code Pros.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract amendments by authorizing me to sign an on-call professional building code services amendment to contract number 1 for Clarity Consulting and Code Pros. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is now our second period for general public comment for things that aren't in the business or action agenda. Has anyone signed up? Okay, is anyone want to make public comment tonight during this second period? Okay. So we'll move on to administration reports. City Manager Jeff Knighton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Several things I wanted to talk about tonight. One, steal a little bit of Chief Moody's thunder. We do have the Shop with a Cop event on December 7th at Walmart, and that's a great piece and part of the community and helps celebrate the holidays. Okay, a little snow up there. Anyway, distracting. A couple other things, the tree lighting on December 6th. I've been given the honor of lighting the tree, so like I said last time, and I hope they don't take me up on it, not standing in a bucket of water when I throw the switch. And then we'll have the parade on December 7th. It'll be a terrific time. One thing I really wanted to highlight was our Chamber of Commerce and other partners are trying to get a Guinness Book of World Record for the number of lighted trees as part of Christmastown, USA, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to get that and go down in the record books. And lastly, if anybody forgets their coffee Thursday morning, our Director of Financial Services Mr. B. Miller will be on the radio talking about budget development and everything else. Rousing, exciting time to talk about budget numbers and those types of things. Aaron makes it fun. It's also his first time on the radio, so I'm sure he's excited about that. That's all I have, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, anything for our city manager tonight? Seeing none. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, anything from the council tonight? Again, seeing none. We are adjourned. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, December 17th at 6 p.m.